Hey, I'm your host, Dr. Desiree Cassell. I'm an orthopedic and pelvic floor physical therapist specializing in women's health, aka pelvic floor. I'm a wife, mom of 3, foodie, lover of all things movement and nature, and I'm super passionate about educating, empowering, and supporting other women like you to find and maintain balance throughout all aspects of their lives, without pain, pressure, or peeing their pants. And this is the Balanced Momtality Podcast, where we will talk about all things pelvic floor, your core, and optimizing your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum recovery, providing you with the knowledge and tools so that you can feel like the strong, playful, and happy mom that you and your family deserve. Now let's get you out of those pads and back to loving movement. Fill up your water, pop in those AirPods, roll out your mat, and let's connect. Before we start today's episode, just a quick disclaimer that anything mentioned in this podcast is not meant to treat or diagnose any medical conditions. If you have any questions or concerns about your healthcare needs, please seek the care of your medical provider. This is also a safe space where we will be talking about very sensitive but important topics, such as issues with peeing and pooping, relationships, and even sex. So if you have littles around, probably a good idea to pop those AirPods in. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hey friend, I hope that you had a fabulous 4th of July weekend. If you are celebrating in the States or anywhere in the world, it was fun to try and just remember that we really are lucky to be here in America right now. I know with all of the political chaos going on and all of the wars and, even socioeconomic issues, environmental issues, life just seems to be peaking and escalating in every aspect, which is so stressful. And I think as much as the political issues in our country and as divided as we might be feeling from time to time, especially in these last couple elections, and just maybe feeling frustrated that our culture and our country isn't necessarily reflective or a representation of how we really are as people. It can get really, unfortunately this year I did start to feel in my daughter even. She was a little, let's just say not patriotic. She didn't really she wasn't really proud. And I had to have this, kind of thought myself, because obviously she's getting that vibe from the people around her. And we just kind of had this talk about how while things might not really be something we're super proud of right now in our country, we are still so lucky to be where we are. We're so lucky to have been born in this country with so many freedoms. Yes, some of them might be a mirage. We might not have as much freedom as we want, but we have so much freedom, so many choices, so many things that we're so blessed to have, so many first world problems, right? Like that's what it is, first world problems, because there were people all over the world without homes, without food, in the middle of war zones, without their family, right? Like we are so blessed, and I think we need to take this opportunity to recognize how blessed we are and be proud that we are American. Or maybe you're just a healthy human somewhere else in the world, and that is something to be proud of and count our blessings for. So just a little side note on the 4th of July, since that just happened this last weekend. But for this week, I just wanted to tune into something a little bit more both physical and how we say a reconnection practice, if you will. So I think that it's always something I get asked a lot. How do you engage your core? How do you know if your core is working how you want? What does it look like when your core isn't doing what it wants? And this can be tricky, right? Because it can vary. It can depend. Just like so many other things, right? It can depend. But with that being said, I think there is still so much that we can still learn and understand about our core in general and how it's functioning, and is it helping you? Because let's be honest, your core is there to help support, to stabilize, to hold strength in your body as you go through life. But it can also be hurting you. It could also be the reason you're peeing your pants. Your core engagement itself could be why you have prolapse, right? So I think that diving in a little bit deeper in this episode is going to be helpful just to help you get a better understanding of what our core is really supposed to be doing and what that looks like day to day. Like, are we supposed to be engaging all the time? Are we supposed to be letting it go during certain phases of exercises? Like, what is it supposed to feel like? Right? So that is what we're diving into today. Is your core helping you or is your core hurting you? Hopefully you have more clarification on that at the end of this episode. And if not, definitely reach out. We can get you on a one-on-one coaching call and really get a sense and really visually see, is your core hurting you or helping you? But I also have programs like my 12-week on-demand restore program inside my Pelvic Floor Core and More app, where you get the guidance, you get the lessons, you get the instruction on each exercise, each progression, each week, and community access to me to send me those videos, send me those pictures, get personalized feedback, even in an on-demand program. So definitely check that out. But let's dive right into the core. And this is where I'm not going to do a ton of anatomy. I know, weird, because I am an anatomy nerd and I always have to start with anatomy because we do need to understand our bodies before we can really heal and reconnect. But I have episodes on that, right? So there are other episodes about the core system and what it looks like, all of the anatomy and how it's supposed to function and blah, 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 right? So go check that out. This is not to say those episodes aren't important and that information isn't crucial, because it is. That's why it already exists. So go check it out because I don't want to waste your time today. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about just what it actually looks like in terms of signs and symptoms that it's not working right and what it's really supposed to be doing when it's working well. So with that being said, let's dive in to, I guess, what signs of a dysregulated core looks like, because I think that helps us more identify in a better way when it's not working, right? Because that's a little easier to understand versus what does it look like when it's working correctly, right? That's a little bit more in the nuance because hopefully you're not peeing your pants. Hopefully you don't have pain or pressure there. So it's a little bit more like, is this correct? Versus, oh, I'm peeing. This is not correct. Oh, I have pressure. This is not correct, right? So it's a little easier to understand what's not right before we can really understand what is right. So with that being said, signs of a dysregulated core, and this is, again, we're saying regulation here, dysregulation, because the core is a system. Go figure out and learn that system, and I will post the other episodes that talk about the core in more in depth in the show notes, so check that out. But it's a system, right? So this system has to manage pressure effectively. This system helps to stabilize our pelvis, stabilize our spine, stabilize our rib cage, stabilize our hips and our legs, right? So it is a big stabilizer. It literally supports all of the pelvic organs and abdominal organs inside the abdominal cavity. It does so much. Because of the pelvic floor, our core also has a lot to do with sexual function, bowel and bladder health, like so many important functions, and they need to be working together synergistically. And when they do, the core is regulated, right? And this is not only how the muscles are working, but how is the nervous system working in this space? And we've heard dysregulation when it comes to the nervous system before. And that's why we have to bring these two terms together, because a dysregulated core is the reality of a core not functioning well. There's usually some dysregulation in the motor control of the systems working together. Maybe the nervous system is sending way too much input to your upper abs and not enough input to your lower abs. So you're getting pressure just literally squeezed down onto your pelvic floor. whatever it is, we need to balance that system out. And this is why balancing your core is so important. And a big reason why my podcast initially was called, and why my in-person clinic still is called, the Balanced Momtality. And this can go in so many ways, which is why I loved it so much. And I almost didn't change the podcast, but balancing our core and living a balanced lifestyle, having a balanced mindset, like these are things that we've heard of before. But a balanced core is something people don't really think of, right? Like we think of strong core. I need to have a strong core. But what is a strong core, right? Is that just muscles that can flex really strong? Because yeah, you could technically call that a strong core. But in my opinion, a strong core is a functional core. It's a regulated core. It's a core that can manage that pressure and respond to this stress that you're having, respond to those pressures that are getting placed in the system without collapsing and falling apart and showing you these signs and issues that it's not working. So what do those signs look like? I've already mentioned a couple. Leaking. If you're peeing your pants at all, you probably have a dysregulated core. If you are feeling pelvic heaviness or pressure or prolapse symptoms, you probably have a dysregulated core. If your abs are gripping, right? So maybe you even feel like, yeah, I'm engaging, quote unquote, all the time. Like you are literally engaging or gripping or sucking in your belly all the time. Not a functional core, right? Gripping is not normal. And gripping could look like a rubber band line. You might actually see a line of tension. Usually we see this in the upper abs, but sometimes it can happen in the middle and lower abs. So do you actually see that line like a rubber band of tension, gripping, holding tension and pressure? Is your breath really shallow? A shallow breath is a huge sign of a dysregulated core. Remembering that the diaphragm is the roof of the core, your breath is crucial. And we've talked so much about breath work, lots of episodes on that to dive into. So it's no surprise that a shallow breath is a big sign of a dysregulated core. But even belly breathing is a sign of a dysregulated core. Maybe not as dysregulated as the shallow chest breather, but still dysregulated nonetheless. That pressure is not being managed effectively and optimally if you are belly breathing, which means your breath is only going into your belly and maybe your chest. We really need to feel that full balloon core expansion to know we're getting the real benefit and regulation to our system. Chronic tension. This is another big one. Chronic tension, whether it is tension in your gut, tension in your butt, right? I rhymed. That was fun. So we really need to be aware of chronic tension, whether we're clenching and causing it or putting ourselves in postures and positions that are constantly causing it. Maybe it's the hip flexors that are constantly tight. Maybe it's your TMJ and jaw that are constantly tight. But a dysregulated core will show chronic tension anywhere in the body, guys. This is not just core tension, because if you do have tension anywhere else in your body, it usually goes back to your nervous system, which goes back to your breath, which will also show you how shallow your breathing is, right? Like these are all connected systems, and we need to think of it that way. Pain. If you have any pain, this is another sign there is dysregulation, because a healthy, functional, resilient core is not painful. It is not tight. It is not tense. It can accept that pressure and elongate and feel safe enough to let go. And that's really why strength isn't just about doing more. It's about your nervous system feeling safe, feeling like it can actually let go and accept pressure, accept stress, literally, right? We're not just talking physical and emotional stress. Yes, we are. But we're also talking about the moment you cough, the moment you sneeze, that moment you pick up a heavy weight. These are pressures and stress on the body. And if you're tensing, trying to bring more effort, you might cause the leak. You might cause the prolapse, because what really needed to happen was your body needed to open a little bit within control. And this is where the nuances and where more coaching and personalized support comes in, because it can be pretty frustrating and hard to tease out, like, what does it look like to breathe? What does it look like to brace? Hey, what does it look like to breathe within the brace? Like, this is the nitty-gritty of pelvic floor PT and why I'm here to help. But I want you to just start understanding, like, this is more about just that mindset awareness. It's not always about engaging. And unfortunately, women in our culture specifically engage or grip or suck in and clench their core and, well, we'll say abs, right? Maybe not even the whole core system. They're just clenching their gut. They're sucking it in. They want to look like they have a flat stomach, so they're just sucking it in and holding it all day. Or maybe that's what they thought it meant to engage their core, was just to suck it in and grip. So they're quote unquote trying to help their body by engaging when they're really gripping and sucking it in. And that's just not functional. That's literally a rubber band shoving pressure down onto organs and onto the bladder, onto the rectum, causing muscles to tighten up. It's just a big lose-lose scenario when we're trying to increase tone and strength and, in more effort, essentially, when really it's about softening and accepting these pressures and knowing when to strengthen and hold and increase that intensity and when to soften and let go. So with that being said, I do want you to start becoming aware of your day-to-day and how you are engaging your core, because ideally your core is not engaged all day. Ideally, we're only turning it on during those moments of effort. And when you're pregnant, let's face it, even standing there and talking to people or going for a walk is kind of a moment of effort, especially when baby's getting big, stretching out your abdominal wall, and it is feeling like you're holding a weight. That might be where you feel like you're holding a little more often. But if you're holding more often, this also means you need to soften more often. You need to become aware of the tension you're holding in your body. I want you to reconnect using strategies like the body check, which I had just talked about last week in our podcast. Check in with the breath. And use my Restore program in the Pelvic Floor Core and More app, where you can track some of these features. You can track leaking and pain and stress and sleep. You can check in into the community with me. And if you're inside Restore, you're actually going to get that guidance week to week to soften. And this is how you strengthen. And this is when you strengthen. And in this exercise, you're going to adjust it like this, right? Those are all the tips and strategies that I give you inside of that program. Even as far and in depth as these are the manual therapy tools and techniques I'm using with patients in person and showing you how to do them on yourself so you can soften that abdominal fascial wall. You can release those pelvic floor trigger points deep inside of your hip bowl without always having someone there. So the tips and strategies are there for you, friend. You just have to reach out and use it. But I do want to give you a little bit of support today inside this episode that's a little bit more tangible. So I want you to just start assessing how you engage your core, because we also talked about when, right? During moments of effort, and now we're going to talk about how. So with that being said, ideally your core zippers up from the bottom up, and we should feel this start with a Kegel, and this is what makes every core or every effort moment you do a core and pelvic floor workout. So we're thinking about it like a zipper jacket. We want to zipper up from the bottom up, starting with a Kegel. So I like to take a nice big inhale in case there's any tension, and then you're going to exhale. Start it with a gentle Kegel, then having your hands stacked on your belly, so one under your belly button and one above your belly button. Ideally, you're feeling your lower hand cinch up and in, and then your upper hand cinch up and in. Never should you feel that pressure pouch out into your hands or down onto the pelvic floor. If you do, you're not bracing correctly. Again, this is something we go super deep dive into the Restore program or in a one-on-one coaching session if you're wanting more support. But just start practicing that. How are you engaging? And are you engaging and zippering up your brace at the appropriate times? But also that means, are you softening at the appropriate times? When you're sitting there, check in, use the body check, scan your tension, release any gripping. You should not be clenching your abs when you're driving. You should not be clenching your abs when you're just sitting there and talking to people, right? Like, we need to be aware of not only when we're bracing and engaging, but also when we're not. Because I find we overdo it, especially women, especially postpartum moms who really feel disconnected from their core and from their body, just pull everything in because they're trying to feel something, feel that connection. And unfortunately, this can just wring pressure down onto the pelvic floor and recruit way too many muscle groups that we're not really wanting to actually help with that brace. So overall, I want you to just start assessing and becoming a little bit more aware of how you're engaging your core, and is it helping you or is it hurting you? And if you're unsure, come over into Pelvic Floor Core and More and let me know, because you do get community access there for free. This is not a private group, so if you want a private group, join the Restore program. Let's get you into that structured routine so you can just show up, hit start, take the guesswork out, and still have the guidance of a pelvic floor PT in your pocket to help you troubleshoot and navigate any issues that might come up. Or if the app's not quite your cup of tea, go over to the Facebook group, the Balanced Momtality Wellness and Support. This is another free and private Facebook group where you can just get community support, ask questions, see any new tips and tricks I have coming out, and just stay in the loop. But otherwise, stay tuned because we are pumping out 2 bad boys a week now, and I really hope that you are getting this information and just feeling the inspiration to check in a little bit more with your core, check in a little bit more with your pelvic floor. How are you moving? How are you feeling? Let me know if you need any help along the way. Well, that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day. I know you've got so many other important things going on, but I hope it was helpful and you leave here with some tools to help you in your healing journey. And I just want to ask you, if you have found this helpful, to please leave a review on iTunes. Scroll down to the bottom of my podcast page and leave that 5-star review so it can help other women see this information. And also, if you want to be a part of my community of amazing women trying to balance all the things, great tips and insight and sharing stories and just motivating each other along the way, feel free to join my Facebook group, the Balanced Momtality Wellness and Support. I hope to see you here next time on the Balanced Momtality Podcast.